Alright guys, welcome back for another video on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and today I'm going to do a priority tier list for all of the SSR character in this game. Now you will see in my tier list in a few minutes time that I have only focused on two type of content when building my tier list, and that is going to be purely based on the world boss, some kind of boss stages, and then also going to be based on arena. And there's going to be one reason for this, which is the fact that I personally feel like world boss and those arena, they are the most important events for all players because they are the events which can actually give you extra daily reward in the form of gems. So for World Boss, basically, if you actually go into ranking, you will be ranked in your server based on where you are scoring. And obviously, if you're able to score one category higher than the previous score, then you are able to get 10 extra gems every single day. It sounds pretty small, but it will build up over time, okay? So you want to achieve the highest score possible in World Boss, and that is also going to be a similar story in Arena. In Arena, if you actually go into the reward section, once again, depending on what tier you are in, you are going to get a certain amount of gems, and if you're one tier higher than the previous tier, you're going to get 10 extra gems. And also at the end of the season, you're also going to get extra seasonal rewards as well. So once again, it's important for you guys to push those two content as much as possible for those extra daily incremental gems. Whereas on the other hand, the third content in this game, which is PvE, in my opinion, you don't really get anything immediately for them, so there's no urgency with it. So for example, if I go into main story, you guys can see I'm currently on hard chapter 9, so I was able to switch start over the previous chapter. Chapter 9, I am missing a few stars on some of them, etc. But what am I missing out if I actually complete this 2 days later, right? I'm not really missing out on anything. And once my level cap actually goes up, which will be the case tomorrow, I'm probably able to get all of those missing stars, which I'm missing right now. So just absolutely no urgency. I think the only PvE content which you can actually get something daily is going to be the entrance exam. But then the resources you get from there is not that meaningful. You don't get gems, which is obviously the most important currency in this game. So that's kind of why PvE as a whole, I just don't prioritize it as much as World Boss and also Arena. And that's also going to be one major factor as I build my tier list. Okay, here's my tier list for all of the SSR characters, and like I said, I will be sorting them by two different dimensions. One's going to be the boss battle, and one will be the PvP. So obviously the ones in the top right quadrant are going to be the best performing ones in both of the content, whereas the two in the bottom left corner sadly are more for PvE purposes. They're still great characters, but more for PvE, and as a result, I don't value them as much because they are not going to give you those extra gem income every single day, okay? So I'm not going to talk too much about Afto or Chocolata here. So starting off, we have Jotaro. He is by far the most important character for PvP. If you go into any kind of PvP matches, it's normally going to be decided by which Jotaro dies first, okay? Who kills who. Now, you don't actually necessarily need your Jotaro to ult first. There are loads of other ways to counter it or neutralize him. For example, you can do CC to control him. You can make sure you actually land your ultimate before his to one-shot him. You can also use a different character as a sacrifice. So you have the enemy Jotaro to kill him off, and then your Jotaro ult into theirs. Okay, there are lots of different ways to neutralize it. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the crux of PvP matches right now. That's kind of the win and loss condition for every single match, and that's kind of why he's going to be by far the most important one for PvP. Now, in terms of boss content, he's also a very great character. He's probably one of the best damage dealers. The only thing I'm not too sure right now is because we actually have loads of dupes for him because he's a feature banner character, where some other best DPS, for example, FF and also the Diavolo, we do not actually have their feature banner to actually get lots of dupes. So it's not quite a fair comparison. And I do believe, just looking by their kit, I do believe FF and also Diavolo would eventually surpass Jotaro when it comes to like single target DPS, etc. So that's kind of what I'm going to put Jotaro in this section. Definitely the best for PvP, and probably like the second best or third best, depending on how you look at it, for boss content as well. Okay. Now let's move on to the two characters who I think would be able to out DPS Jotaro in boss content, and that's gonna be Diavolo and also FF, and also Caesar, I guess, to some extent. I have heard a lot of people comparing Caesar against FF and saying that Caesar kind of need the dupes to shine. So maybe give benefit of doubt, I'm gonna rank all three of them equally at the top tier in terms of the DPS for boss battles. However, a lower dupe is very clear. FF is just going to be so much better this season. So that's kind of why I'm going to put FF slightly at a priority. Diablo, I'm going to put a slightly lower priority than FF. Once again, I do feel like, especially for his last passive, you kind of need like all of the dupes in order to unlock it so that you can make any kind of enemy isolate him. Otherwise, Diablo is going to fall slightly in those kind of AoE boss content, whereas FF is just going to be good for every single boss content out there pretty much. So that's kind of the ranking order between the 3 DPS in my opinion. Now, in terms of PvP, Caesar is just too fragile, so he's just going to fall off, and that's kind of why I don't think he's any good at PvP at all. Diablo is your standard assassin, so he's able to actually just target enemy back row. He also reduced their healing, so it's very just straight up assassinate any kind of the enemy back row character. FF is a very interesting choice. She's still somewhat fragile, similar to Siege, but slightly more bulky than Siege because she does have the other thing that she can summon, Plankton that she can summon. But the most important thing for FF right now in PvP is actually the fact that her Plankton can take up as one of the spots for enemy Jotaro to actually nuke into. And especially if you actually make your own FF having the highest attack, because Jotaro always ult into the one with the highest attack on the enemy side. Then what's going to end up happening is that you can actually force the enemy Jotaro to attack the Plankton rather than attacking into your own Jotaro, etc. And that's just going to give you an extra advantage in PvP matches. Like I said, it's all about neutralizing enemy Jotaro right now. So that's kind of what I do feel like FF is very, very valuable in PvP right now, but that could also change because right now the meta is very much all about Jotaro. But in the future, when we have other characters, it could change. But for the time being, I definitely think she is probably one of the most valuable characters in PvP. So that's kind of the explanation for them. And then the only other character I also put at top tier for boss battle is gonna be Giorno. But Giorno is there for support rather than for damage. If you actually have his second ultimate unlocked, he is able to give one of the strongest debuff ability in the game. It only lasts for 5 seconds, so it's quite short. So there could be a bit of RNG in terms of whether you can ult during those times for your DPS. But that is basically one of the strongest DPS supports in the game right now. Okay, so that's kind of why he's also going to be top tier for boss content. When it comes to PvP, I do feel like he is going to be slightly falling off a bit. Now, one of the things for him is that you might be thinking, if you do have his passive 2 unlocked or passive 1 unlocked, he's actually able to give initial energy for your whole team, and that sounds great, right? You can make your Jotaro ultimate first, but the reality is a lot of time Jotaro can actually stun the enemy, and also there are lots of other characters in this game which can actually control. So even if your ultimate is actually first, if you're actually stunned or control, you won't actually be able to fire it off. And a lot of time I just feel like there's lots of other ways to neutralize the enemy Jotaro rather than just relying on you to ult first. And like I said, even if you ult first, if the enemy actually have someone like FF to actually suck away or attract away your ultimate, then you are still not going to do any good. So even though I still see the value for him in PvP, he's just going to be slightly lower down the priority because there are other better ways in order to enable your Jotaro. Okay, so that's kind of the ranking I'm going to give for him. Then the only other character in the top quadrant is going to be Bukarati. He is a bit of an all-rounder character. So basically, he is able to do damage, but not quite to the extent of your Diablo or your FF or Jotaro, etc. However, he's also able to do debuff, especially when you actually fully unlock his last passive. You are actually able to extend the debuff duration as well. So I think at that point he will be a very deadly combo with Giorno to extend his debuff. And then in PvP, he has so many control moves. He can also assassinate just like Diablo as well. So I feel like he's a bit of all-rounder, capable of doing everything. Not quite the best at everything, which is kind of why I put him in this kind of middle spot. So he's going to be slightly lower than every other character at their best role. However, all-rounder, he's a very, very solid character. And I think one of the strongest points for him is the fact that he's so versatile. It actually makes him somewhat power creep proof in the sense that even if you put loads of dupes and investment into him, eventually you'll probably still be end up having him on the team because he's just able to perform so many different roles. He can always find a way back into a team. Okay, so that's going to be my thoughts on Bukarati. Then we're going to come to Hermes. Hermes is a tank, so obviously she's going to do nothing for the boss battle. But in terms of PvP, she's very, very important because of the control she's able to do. Once again, I said one of the ways you can neutralize enemy Jotaro is to actually stun him, and Ernest is one of the characters who is capable of doing that. Okay, so that's kind of the reason for this. And then the last two characters I'm going to talk about is going to be the ones which I feel like they are more for AoE type of content. So in some sense, they are more suited for PvE battle as well. But there are sometimes boss battles where there are AoE enemy boss. So for those kind of reason, I do think Prosciutto and also Koichi can work well there. They also have a bit of utility and to it as well. Prosciutto is actually able to debuff the enemy for the rest of your team to do more damage, and then Koichi is able to actually buff the person in front of him, increasing his attack speeds, etc. So as a result, they both work, both first of all as a sub DPS for the AoE boss battles, but also add extra utility for your team as well. So I do feel like they can work for boss battle, but just not the most ideal choices. And then in terms of PvP, both of them I just feel like they take too long for them to get their full strength. Right now in PvP, it's all about Jotaro just nuking all of the enemy one by one, and the fact they take so long to build up their stuff, like the buff stacks, the debuff stacks, etc. I just feel like they're not really suited for the PvP meta right now. And the closing note, in case anyone is wondering why Koichi is slightly ahead of Prosciutto in terms of the PvP skill, it's because of the fact he also have a tiny bit of control move. So that's kind of why I put him slightly ahead of Prosciutto. But both of them I don't think is that viable in PvP right now. Okay, so that's going to be my thoughts on all of the current SSR character. And like I said, I'm mainly focusing on boss, battle, and also PvP because those are the ones which can actually net you daily resources in terms of gems and also a bunch of other coins and currency, etc. So that's kind of what I'm prioritizing the characters in this way. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section.